Hi everybody, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn today using Lean to drive site productivity. Our facilitator today is Marc Roberts from Lean Construction International. I'll hand over to him shortly, but just before I do, a couple of housekeeping points. If you have any technical difficulties, we first recommend logging off and then coming back in again. That typically seems to work well. If not, there are dial-in options. So you've got the phone number and a participant pin there. Get any questions or comments that you have ready, drop them into the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner throughout the session. We'll also have a bit of a Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to put any questions that you have in there. We'll also be recording the session and we'll make it available in the offsite resource library afterwards. And we also ask that at the end of the session, you just complete a very short 2-minute feedback form for us. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Marc now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for your time today. So talking about how we kind of really boost productivity then. First question and first thing to consider is, well, fundamentally, how do we actually define productivity? Because I kind of work across a number of sites through Lean Construction International, and a lot of people and a lot of teams that I kind of encounter, that we've all got kind of different views on what exactly productivity is, and are measuring it in different ways. So it's important we understand, kind of almost have a consistent view of what it is and fundamentally what it isn't. So that's almost our starting point. So clicking on to my next slide here. Okay, so I think most of you that are on the call here may have encountered this metric here, PPC, percentage of planned activities completed. Okay, now that is definitely not measuring productivity. Okay, some people think it is. In actual fact, the way to think about it, that's more like measuring how much fuel we've got in the tank. Yeah, still a good measure, still definitely has its place. Yeah, but it's not to be confused with measuring productivity. So when we talk about productivity, we're more in the thinking of measuring our miles per gallon. So it's trying to think about what output are we getting with the input that we're putting in. Okay, so that's the kind of key difference. We're not talking about how much fuel we got in the tank here. We're more concentrated in our miles per gallon, and that will then translate to a metric along the lines of this. So something like a units per person per day is quite typical. So or per week, or even per hour, yeah, depending on what's relevant for your project, your process, and what it is you're actually looking at. Okay, but that's more akin to a pure productivity metric. The other key point then, as well as measuring how productive we are, we need to be also conscious on the quality aspects, yeah, because there's no point producing things really efficiently if it's not good quality, yeah. So we need to be considering, in this example, as well as our miles per gallon, yeah, are we actually putting in the correct fuel? Are we using the correct materials, yeah? And also fundamentally, are we getting to the correct destination when we set off and driving, yeah, in the optimum way? Yeah, we're not going on detours. Yeah, so in that sense, as well as measuring that miles per gallon or units per person per day type thinking, we also need to be heavily concentrated on our right first time, yeah? So, because they go kind of hand in hand. So that's almost the first point, first kind of consideration. Okay. So as we go through, sometimes there's, again, people will start with the measure, yeah, and start measuring productivity, and then looking at all the things that are kind of then impacting productivity. Whereas we will tend to start much kind of further up. There's kind of four P's as it is there: people, product, process, and performance. And we start right at the top. And almost the first principle of Lean, yeah, is understand what our customers value. So that is where we always kind of fundamentally start, right in at the top, getting that customer insight and channeling that into our people, into our teams. So it's explicit in terms of what our customers actually value, what it is we're trying to kind of build here, what the benchmark kind of looks like, what is the quality standard, all that kind of good stuff there, and making sure, more importantly, that all our teams know what's expected to really deliver customer value. Yeah, so we channel that into our people, and then that helps align our values, our behaviors for success, and then grow the capability accordingly to deliver against that value. Yeah, so we're getting the right team in with the right skill set, the right mindset in place. So that's our first starting point. The skill set and mindset aligned to deliver what our customers value. In that enabling sphere there, we can then start to focus and orchestrate what we need to get from our product. So we're then tapping into bringing that voice of the customer into the design of our product, and looking at different ways of working in terms of design for safety, manufacture and assembly, really critiquing, ensuring that we've got a robust product that is easy to construct or optimize for construction, but also will deliver what we want in that life cycle of the building or the product in hand. So having the right people, designing the right product in place, we can then start to talk about our process to actually deliver that project or that product, get it constructed and in place with a minimum amount of effort and frustration. That's where we look at fleshing out the end-to-end process, teasing out, ripping out the waste, simplifying it and streamlining it as best as possible. And across those two spheres there, that's the tool set. So here then we're aligning the skill set, the mindset and the tool set, all to deliver exactly what our customers value. Okay, the output then of that is customer value. Yeah, so which translates itself to the performance metrics, the KPIs that we look to drive across our project. Yeah, as opposed to starting with that bottom arrow here, those metrics, and then trying to tease out what we need to improve across these points here. What we're trying to do from the outset, early doors, is set everything up for success. Okay, and that's the key difference to really boosting productivity across our programs and across our projects, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's the first thing to consider. So moving on, so all that kind of sounds very good, but how do we kind of tee all that up and get all that kind of rocking? Yeah, well, there's two aspects for it. So we have a flywheel that we call our 4 A's. Yeah, so this flywheel really helps get the momentum to boost performance and drive productivity across these programs. And our 4 A's being assess, align, amplify, and ultimately accelerate. Okay, so that generates this momentum for boosting our productivity or performance. But that process, and we'll go into each of those key A's in a bit. We need to kind of couple up with taking the people with us. Okay, so growing our capability, we use a see, learn, do, teach, coach approach. Okay, so it's not about a single kind of specialist jumping in as a superhero, fixing issues, putting in process, doing 2 teams. Yeah, it's actually taking the people with us at each and every kind of stage and building a culture of everyday heroes. Yeah, in tandem to boost and deliver what's expected. Okay, so moving us on in terms of those 4 A's. First one being then assess. So assess then fundamentally is where we're surfacing all issues, bringing all issues, opportunities, the art of the possible to the surface. So within this, as mentioned earlier, we really kind of tease out what is that kind of voice of the customer to start with. What is the expectation? What are we trying to build here? and deliver. And then what's the optimum sequence of events to actually deliver that? Where currently, with our current processes and what we know kind of traditionally in terms of how we work, where do we anticipate kind of pain points, delays, frustrations, and where are there potential opportunities to kind of streamline things and make things flow smoother, slicker, faster, better? Yeah, safety being a given. Okay, so that's our assess phase, is really teasing out, okay, so what is it we're kind of looking at here, what's expected, and basically what's hurting or got the potential to hurt us and cause us a lot of pain and frustration, yeah, and a lot of headaches in the job. And then from that, trying to prioritize and size the prize of almost our improvement focus, yeah. So we're driving the right things that are going to give us the biggest bang for the buck. Okay, that then will help align, as I said, the right things, basically the right improvement areas, yeah. So that we can start to identify, say, fundamentally across our program, what are the big ticket items that are going to help pull that program to the left? What's ultimately going to de-risk our kind of milestones, help us kind of beat the program, not just meet it, yeah. And then on the back of that, how do we kind of know that we're kind of rocking and we're able to actually do what we said we're going to do? So what does our kind of visual management, our performance control systems actually look like? Yeah, how much transparency have we got on the job? Kind of bad news early is better than bad news late. So how instantly can we kind of capture, expose, and see those potential issues coming to us to give us sufficient time to resolve them in a robust way before they actually hit us, okay? So that's where we start to align all those systems, tease out the kind of process, that end-to-end delivery process, and attack and drive those kind of wastes and visualize as best as possible all levels of planning. Okay, so that's where we're aligning our systems, procedures, and processes. From that then, at this point, we've then got processes in place. We know how we're going to deliver the job and how we're going to get things onto site and get things in position all the way through. It's then how do we actually ensure that we're continually driving betterment across our project and really landing those opportunities that we identified early on through our align and assess kind of phases, yeah. And this is where we get into our rigorous kind of program management and control kind of solutions, giving us ultimately instant transparency of where the job is. Are things on track, not on track? Are they good or bad? If they're kind of tripping out, what are the biggest issues? And fundamentally, what are we doing about it? So looking at performance trends, graphs and charts on the key areas of the job, the initial kind of causes, drill down into root causes, then a robust process for capturing those issues and driving robust resolution, celebrating success on the back of it, and then ensuring that ultimately each day is better than the last day, better than each phase is better than the last phase, each job is better than the last job, but not as good as the next. So we're continually sharing our learning, bottling that goodness as we go, and ensuring everyone's drinking it, yeah, in future phases, future projects. So that's basically our system that we put in place to manage and control the job and improve. After that then, so in our accelerate phase, this is where it all starts to sing. So by this time, we've got our processes in place, in tune, optimized to help deliver assurance of milestones, and all our people mobilized to drive improvement at their right level. We're not reliant, almost if you look at the C kind of column here, if we're reliant on one expert, one specialist, one consultant going in, driving improvement, yeah, pretty much you're just going to get one step change improvement along the way. At this point, what we advocate and what we've positioned here is we've mobilized the whole team, in effect, to drive improvement at each and their appropriate level of control and influence. So everyone's geared up, not just kind of completing the day's work and completing what needs to be done, but actually driving improvement on the back of it. So we're continually all mobilized to drive betterment and boost productivity along the way. So that's ultimately the kind of 4 A's. So mirrored up to that, obviously to give that insight and drive that focus, we're going to be having a lot of transparency, measuring productivity on key aspects of the job, whether it be cladding going up. We can have measures on productivity on cladding, on concrete, or whatever facets of the job we like. All these kind of reports kind of spitting out here, there, and everywhere. And the danger is we create a job's worth of kind of information and pretty kind of charts. And we want to kind of avoid that situation. So we're going to get a lot of transparency, but it doesn't kind of stop there. So it's not just about the pretty chart here or the pretty graphs. What's more important is what we're actually doing with those graphs. Yeah, what action do they actually provoke and invigor across the team? Yeah, and what's our ability to then use that data and take action on it? And here kind of links to the typical kind of routine that we'd look to embed across our teams. So starting with taking the data and looking at and fundamentally asking the first question, well, how are we performing? What does it kind of look like? What are our trends? Are we getting better or worse? Yeah. What does it see? What does the data actually tell us? From that, can we actually truly quantify what are our top 3 issues? If we're not on track, fundamentally, well, why are we slipping? What are the top 3 issues? Yeah. And what data have we got to actually support that? Once we know the top 3 issues, okay, so what are the underlying reasons for those issues? Yeah. So fundamentally, if it's steel work, that's a problem on the job. Well, why is that? What's happening with that? Is it because the design hasn't been approved? Is it because the previous handover wasn't complete? What are those underlying reasons for that slippage? And then drilling down a bit beneath that. So why is that? Okay, so why is that a problem? Yeah, why haven't we kind of caught that kind of earlier on? And then what do we need to do to fix it? And ultimately, we use it's a relatively simple 5C process to kind of capture and drive that kind of going through. So it's quantifying the concern, yeah, understanding the impact that problem is actually having, making sure that we've got a containment in place to resolve the here and now, but then give us some time to actually fundamentally ask those why questions, get into the root cause of that underlying concern there, and putting a robust fix, a robust corrective action in place to bottom that out so we don't get hit with that same problem next week on the next phase or on the next job. It's bottomed out kind of once and for all, and we've got a verification process in place to ensure that that is the case. It has been closed out. We drive and track that on a simple action plan, action log, 5C action plan, which then we can look back at our results, say, has it had an impact? Have we then seen a difference on our performance? Okay, and then celebrate the success and recognize the efforts, and then transfer the goodness, basically. Okay, so that's our 5C approach. So that looks a busy old chart there, but in essence, it's how are we performing? What are our issues? And then are we capturing those and putting a robust fix in place and make sure that they're closed out, yeah, in a solid way and demonstrating the impact back on performance. Okay. That cycle, then, we can apply a number of levels of how we plan and position the job. So most of you on the call, I gather, will be familiar with the kind of last planner system. This is the the typical planning system that we see on many projects, or will be deploying on many projects. So typically we've got a master schedule or a contract program that will then be translated into a 6 or 12-week collaborative kind of look ahead program, and where we're teasing out all the make ready needs, which will then help to feed a detailed weekly work plan, which will then help guide our daily activity briefs. Yeah, all underpinned with a control room or dashboard to basically guarantee that the health of our program, see exactly what's helping, what's hurting, where the potential issues are, and where additional support or improvements can be kind of added, helped, and provoked. So across each of those levels, whether it's 6, 12-week, weekly level, daily activity, that cycle that we saw earlier on can be kind of applied. Yeah. So we're taking action, resolving daily issues as they come up, which is almost kind of reactive, but all the way through to our proactive look ahead session, where we're exposing these issues before they actually hit us and driving action and resolution early on. And sometimes things will actually get bubbled up from this system up to an SLT kind of level, where we'll have to take strategic decisions and strategic improvements again to help drive betterment. Yeah, but that cycle, as we saw earlier on, using 5 C's, can apply at multiple levels of planning and control, and also on multiple metrics. Yeah, so we've mentioned productivity, it can be quality, right first time, same thinking, same approach. Now here it's important to note, so the earlier we actually start and with this kind of thinking, we mentioned about setting the teams up for success. So the earlier we start, the biggest impact we can actually kind of make. Yeah, you can imagine kind of going in midway through on a project, trying to deploy all this thinking, setting up. If you haven't got the structure on the earlier slide kind of here, haven't got this kind of system in place as a starting point, trying to deploy something like this midway through or 3/4 of the way through a project, and then on the back of that, kind of productivity measures against each kind of core process, that can be a proper job's worth. And typically at that point, the project is always kind of behind, and so people are already under pressure, and you're trying to shape a new way, and it's not impossible. You can still deliver impact and get benefit, but it's a lot of hard work doing it at that stage. So as mentioned kind of earlier on, the earlier that we kind of start on this, and shaping, positioning our teams, getting them mobilized in the thinking, getting the right behaviors in place, ensuring that they've got the problem solving kind of capability, all this language, whether it's 5 C's, the consistency of messaging, so we all understand what productivity is, what it isn't, what trackers we're going to put in place. We do all that all up front, yeah, before the guys actually hit the ground running, or before we actually kind of go live, as our readiness and almost kind of pre-construction kind of activity. If we do all that up front, obviously the bigger impact then we can have as a collective, yeah, at the end of the job. Yeah, so there's no danger of things kind of going over budget, yeah, or over time scale. Yeah, the later on, obviously the smaller the impact. Yeah, so the key message there, what I'm driving to, is the earlier we start, the bigger impact that we can get. So don't delay, start today. Right, another key aspect when we're looking at our processes is having this end-to-end view, yeah? And this is where we can apply things like value stream mapping. So here we can, so if we think of, let's take a steel process. So if we're manufacturing and installing steel trusses and beams on a job, yeah, we can then tee out or tease out what is the current state process, that end-to-end process. So right from when we get an order all the way to fulfillment, yeah, and handover. And so what does that sequence of events, what's that current state process all the way look like? What are all those kind of key issues, pain points, delays and frustrations? And it may be a new job, a bespoke piece of work for an iconic building that we've not done before, but based on our current practices and how and what we know and what we anticipate for this job, what would that current state actually look like? Yeah, and what does that timeline and sequence of events factor as? From there, we can then start to tease out, so where are these kind of potential opportunities where we can eliminate some time on that, do things a bit slicker, better, faster, eliminate all these kind of wastes in the process, the old tin wood there, the opportunities where we've got excessive kind of transportation, excessive motion, all these kind of delays, frustrations and pain points. Yeah, so we kind of flesh out and eliminate as much of that as possible, and then kind of moving that forward, then seeing, well, okay, is there any further opportunity to kind of streamline this? Is there anything else we can kind of combine, rearrange, simplify, standardize, or even automate when we do it? That will then give us almost the art of the possible, our desired state. So this is our optimized, streamlined process that we're going to gun for on this kind of job. Yeah, that will then, to get from A to B or transform our current state to our desired state, that will then spit out an improvement plan. Yeah, which will then help guide focused improvements or strategic improvements that we can then tee up to make sure that that process sings smoothly and seamlessly from, as I say, order all the way through to handover on the job. Yeah, right first time is the thinking. So that process, that value stream mapping process, as I've relayed there, it again is really powerful to ensuring that we have got a productive process in place from the get-go. Yeah, and again, we're not putting in, the danger is we can just storm on and put in this current state because that's what we've always done from the get-go, build already factoring in a shed load of waste, delays and frustrations. Yeah, exposing those throughout the job and then trying to retrofit improvement solutions. So much better to expose those processes right on the earliest outset, which will give us more time to tee up these improvement solutions as we go. So when this steel work is actually due to be manufactured, in this case, we've got all the systems and procedures and those slick ways of working in place, ready to rock. And even teased out any modular solutions as well that are going to help put less time on the construction site as well. Okay. The other thing when we think about that, so we're not just looking at discrete processes. If you take the overall kind of construction process all the way through from, if you think of, I talk about order to fulfillment, but if you take it even further, go from customer interest all the way through to customer satisfaction on a job. That will take you through all the way, well, even before design, it will take you through the kind of tenders phases, design, procurement, approvals and testing, manufacture, supply chain and coordination, all the way through to aftercare. Yeah, if you think of that as an end-to-end process, yeah, the ideal is we want to be able to flow that entire process as smoothly as possible on demand. Yeah, all in tune with the minimal amount of stagnation or kind of hold up. Yeah, so in that sense, we can, when we're focused on productivity, joining up each of those, and rather than talking kind of trade to trade kind of handovers and speeding up and aligning those touch points, if you think about the touch points from design to procurement and procurement to approvals and testing and all the delays and time meters and stealers aligned between each of these kind of phases and stages, yeah, there's masses of chunks of time and opportunity. So again, when we're looking at driving productivity across the job, we can be thinking it across, it's not just construction that we're talking about. So bear in mind design productivity, yeah. How do we know our capacity across design? You know, what does our design release kind of program actually look like? Yeah, and how productive is that? How much kind of requests for information are we getting? All that is a symptom of kind of, well, it's all failure demand. Yeah, all impact productivity and time on the job. So it's all about getting smooth, controlled flow throughout our end-to-end process. Yeah, not just looking at construction, not just looking at number of bits of steel kind of going up. The other thing to think about when we're talking productivity is quite often people think, oh, it's all about time and motion, and we just got to get a time on the job for how long does it actually take the guys to put up that piece of steel, or to put up that bit of cladding, or to lay that bit of concrete, and get almost a drop-off rate for a standard time for those bits of steel. And quite often we've missed the biggest opportunity, whereas fundamentally we should be asking, well, what's stopping, or what has the likelihood of stopping these guys putting up the bit of steel or laying that piece of concrete when we actually need it? Yeah. So as soon as they're ready to pick up that baton, what's stopping them from picking that baton up? Yeah. So have they got the right design in place? Is the area available? Have they got the equipment they need? Are they kind of ready to go? Or is there a lot of waiting and things that they haven't got and that's not teed up that we haven't thought about? So that is the bigger prize. Yeah, looking at all the things that got the potential to stop the guys from working, as opposed to really concentrating on what I'd call the tool time for doing the job. Yeah. Okay. So here are just a few results that we've seen come from a number of people that we've worked with. So I mentioned earlier on, it's about taking the people with us. So it's not about consultants going in there and delivering improvement projects. We need to upskill the actual team to deliver improvements themselves with a see, learn, do, teach, coach approach. And here we've just got some examples of exactly that. So teams and individuals that have delivered, as you see, there's sizable improvements off their own back, yeah, with using the structure and some of the improvement tools and techniques to boost productivity in their field, or on their package, and across their projects. Okay, and there's many more of those. But if you think, yeah, how many people that you've got on your projects, all you kind of back at supervisors, your package managers, all driving those types of improvements at their level, yeah, we can make a massive difference and really accelerate that performance drive across the program. So it really, the key to this is really engaging and mobilizing those guys and girls on the earliest outset to be in tune with this. And linked to that is, as well as the giving the kind of skill set there, is tapping into that mindset. So sometimes people will say, well, actually, I've got 101 things to do. I've got to do this, this, and this, and this. And some of this improvement activity almost takes, yeah, a bit of a, it doesn't seem as important as almost the task at hand. So quite often what I see is people have got particularly when you go in almost late in on a project, people have got all the time in the world to do things inefficiently, but no time to actually stand back and look at what's actually happening and how things are actually working, and see, well, fundamentally where they can make a difference and do things a little bit slicker, better, faster, more efficiently to save time in the long run. Yeah. you need to take some time out to get some benefit. And midway through, when you're already on a back step and things are running over, getting that ability to take time out with the teams is really hard. Yeah, when you're in the problem, it's harder to see the issues as opposed to when you've got some time out to work on the problem. The other key message here is fundamentally you're never done. Yeah. So when you've landed one improvement, it's kind of, well, where's the next? Yeah. No problem is a problem. Yeah. And so it's the old kind of statement here: without RPP, you get RIP. Yeah. So RPP meaning relentless pursuit of perfection. Yeah. So unless you've got that, it'll be rest in pieces. You'll be overtaken. Yeah. Even if you think, well, we're great now, we've managed to deliver this kind of job on time. Well, fundamentally, what we're going to do differently on the next one to make that even slicker, better, faster. There's always opportunity to improve. Yeah. That's why we call it continuous improvement. And there's linked to that continuous improvement is continuous employment. Yeah. Because if we don't continually improve, we will get overtaken. Yeah. So we need to have that mindset, that ethos throughout everything that we do. It's always a big warning sign, actually, and a big flag when you hear people say, "Oh yeah, well, we've done lean." Yeah. Because you know that it's never done. Right. So I've gone through some kind of key aspects on that. So just to kind of summarize. So first off, step one, when we're looking at productivity, is let's understand what it is and what it isn't. Yeah. So there's a number of measures that are important. Yeah. The PPC is a great measure, but it is just measuring how much fuel we've got in the tank. To measure productivity, we need to be looking at what input we're putting in on the job to deliver the output that we want. Yeah. And so typically units per person per day, as an example, is a good measure. Yeah. But deploying that where appropriate. The other thing as well, being mindful of the quality that we're getting out, our right first time kind of metric. Yeah. There's no point producing things efficiently if they're rubbish, yeah, or going to be rejected further on down the line. The other thing then is keeping things in balance. So we need a process to accelerate improvement, but always take our people with us. And the earlier we engage, the better, and tee everything up for success. So focusing in on our people, growing the capability, getting the behaviors in place, the mindset and the skill set first, all in tune with the customer. We're in a great position then to then start to apply the right tools and techniques across our process, across our products, and to give the performance that we need. And then thinking back to our 4A's approach, really understanding, going through that assessment, really understand the key enablers, the key pain points or potential pain points of the job, seeking out the art of the possible. You know, what's the optimum ways of working? What is the optimum process end to end? What are the key, almost strategic improvement areas that are really going to help de-risk our timescales, our milestones, and then drive betterment across those areas, yeah, with some rigor. Having that delivery system in place so that we can see bad news early, not late, yeah, so we can take action as early as possible, putting in a robust fix using our 5C approach, yeah, so everyone's understanding what that concern is. We've got a containment in place if it's needed to stop the bleeding. We can get some time then to really understand what the root cause is, put a robust fix in, and then ensure that issue has fundamentally been closed out, bottle that goodness, and make sure that is now locked into future ways of working, that solution, so we don't get bitten by that problem ever again. Ultimately, having the visibility so that we can see, and this is really the acid test, we want to be able to go onto any project at any level and fundamentally see three things. Yeah. First off is, can we see the situation at a glance? Can we instantly see, is it on track, not on track, good or bad? Next thing then is, well, what are the biggest issues? And then fundamentally, are we inspired then to make a difference on the back of it? Yeah. What are we doing about it? Yeah. So that's the acid test, those three things: situation at a glance, biggest issues, and are we inspired to make improvement? Yeah. The last one being the most important. If we can only see the situation at a glance and where the biggest issues are, and we're not inspired to take action or do anything about it, all we've got is a reporting culture, yeah, and which isn't adding any value. It's all about the action it inspires, not about the pretty graphs or the pretty charts. Okay, and then lastly, remembering that we're never done. Yeah, back to this relentless pursuit of perfection. Yeah, without RPP, you get RIP. Okay. Right, so there's a lot perhaps that I've kind of gone through there. I've summarized as best as possible. I guess the best thing now, and this is where we tend to get a lot of value, is fielding any questions that we've got.
Thanks, Mark. So yes, if you could put any questions, queries, or comments that you have into the chat box, whether that's your experience of using Lean to drive site productivity, if you've got any best practice or lessons learned that you'd like to share, or whether you've used any of the processes discussed today, that would be great. So we do have one question to start off with. We currently start with the question, what matters to the customer? Looking at work through a sustainability lens, could we start with the question, what matters? Then can many of the lean approaches and methodologies be applied to other performance areas, such as improving environmental performance or impact and other sustainability performance areas?
Yeah, good question. So and I'd say yes, we can. The first step there is to educate the customer sometimes. And there's an old quote from Henry Ford, and it says, like, if he'd asked his customer what they value, all he would get back is what they need, or is, yeah. His question was, if he'd asked his customers what they needed, all they would have told him is they needed a faster horse. Yeah, they wouldn't have necessarily highlighted the need for the automotive vehicle. So sometimes there's a need to educate our customers, yeah, across the need for sustainability, and then that need will then work its way through. Ultimately, if the customer is willing to pay and sees that as value, then we can tap into that and align our delivery accordingly. But businesses are in place to deliver customer value at the end of the day. Sometimes, there can be kind of conflicts there, and we need to ensure there's alignment all the way through, and often help educate the customer. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the question is, yes, we can, but we need to do it with the customer and help them see in some cases.
Thanks, Mark. We don't actually have any other questions at the minute. So yeah, just a reminder that if you do have any, please put them into the chat box. We'll give you a few minutes to rack your brains and pop them in. What are some types of questions that you typically get asked, Mark, when delivering this learning?
Yeah, well, quite often there's some challenges and some barriers for actually doing this, and again, it stems back to more often than not, people try to implement productivity measures again when things are already kind of off kilter, and they're already kind of running behind, and think that they've got milestone kind of pressures, and then they want to kind of bring this thinking in at that point in time where people are under a lot of stress and strain, and and it can be a real challenge. So and then that's where you get hit with potential resistance as well, because they're already kind of getting battered, and then you're trying to come in and almost give a round wheel where they're perhaps pushing things along on square wheels and helping them see that there is actually a better way here, but they've just got their head down trying to motor forward and do what's needed. So sometimes getting people's ability to take time out in those moments of frustration is quite a battle. So again, that echoes the point, and I can't make this enough, that the earlier we start with this thing, with this thinking on a program, on a project, the actual better it is, and the easier it is to actually put in place. We can do a lot more work putting in these systems right from the get-go, and when people are onboarded, they're onboarded into this way of thinking. Just as we do like safety inductions, we can induct people into how we actually improve and drive betterment across the program, and establish these improvement routines that I kind of talked about, so that it becomes the norm right from the get-go. Changing things midway through almost a crisis is always problematic. It's doable, but yeah, it is always problematic.
We do have some similar questions coming through on that theme. So have you come across any situations where a clash of personalities is preventing progress? If yes, how was it resolved? And do you have any tips for changing the culture? For example, if a team are set in their ways and not willing to change?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, definitely there's always a clash of personalities. Yeah. And particularly in construction, I mean, I come from a steel making background, and there was a clash of personalities there. But a lot of it comes back down to messaging as well, and approach. So the first thing you think is sometimes when there's a clash of personalities, what there isn't is a lack of passion. So there's generally a lot of passion there that we need to tap into, and some of it is fed by fear, so sometimes it's just gaining a sense of kind of or confidence with these kind of big egos, big personalities, and helping them see that actually we're here to help, not hinder, and we can take away a lot of frustrations. So it's all messaging. So when we talk about, for example, wastes and waste elimination and boosting productivity, I always talk about, rather than talk about waste, talk about frustrations. All we're trying to do is deliver what our customers value with a minimal amount of effort and frustration. So why wouldn't you want that? It is almost the first point. And then once you start talking almost in that manner, people start to see and start to come on board. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Well, how could I argue against that? So a lot of it is helping people see. Sometimes when you're working sort of close on a process with some kind of highly strung kind of supervisors from time to time, that obviously they've got a lot of experience, and they've got some smart aleck like myself that doesn't know their particular field of work as best as they do, but just helping them stand back and say, well, you are the expert, but just stand back and just get some time out and study what's going on. Why are all these people walking here, there, and everywhere? When we actually look at a job, how many people have actually got a tool in their hand doing something? What's stopping these people? Why are they all waiting there? What's stopping that? Yeah, where are all these frustrations kind of coming from? And help them see and understand, and basically give them a helping hand. So that's almost one element. So it's all helping see and kind of messaging. The other key thing, so I always talk about there's two hurdles that are going to stop us doing this stuff. One hurdle, and they both begin with a C. One hurdle is kind of culture, and the other one is kind of commitment. So culture, sometimes you can be tempted to work with almost what I'd call like the anchor draggers. Yeah, you've got these people that are absolutely dragging the anchor. No matter what you do, you can't convince them. They're set in their ways, and they just don't want to get on board. I mean, I've had people come in and they've literally put ear defenders on, put their arms folded, and just completely disengaged. Yeah, and I've even had some of those people sent on practitioner programs and everything else. And they've turned up and say, look, I've been told I'm a negative bugger, and as a result, I've been put on this program. Now, if you take that approach, you're potentially doing a lot of damage across your team. Yeah, because what you're doing is you're promoting that negative behavior and that negative attitude, and giving those people a lot of recognition, sending them on improvement programs and trying to grow their capability. In the meantime, I can guarantee you've got some rock stars in your team, some people that are at the other end of the boat that are red-faced with energy and eagerness, pride and passion, trying to paddle as fast as they can, trying to do loads of things, and you're not recognizing those guys. So rather than get bogged down with some of those anchor draggers at the back, just kind of contain them. And the message is focus with those guys at your front of your boat, those stars, those eager ones, develop those, and then things will start to get a lot more kind of traction. So that's almost the starting point in terms of kind of culture. Recognize those kind of stars from the front and work with those. The other thing about that, about shaping and driving this, the other kind of hurdle is commitment. And this is a simple thing, really. This is the difference between contribution and commitment. Classic kind of analogy, and apologies for any kind of vegans or veggies out there, but it's ultimately it's the difference between eggs and bacon on your plate, on your breakfast. Yeah. So the chicken there has contributed very nicely by laying that egg and giving you that egg, but the old pig there is fully committed. Yeah. There's no going back for that old pig. Yeah. And this is where we need to be in terms of our messaging. So, and this is why it's more important to do this right from the outset, early doors. Yeah. This is the way that we're going to operate going forward. These are the routines that we're going to be putting in place. This is our culture. This is our behaviors for success. This is plan A. There's no plan B. Yeah. What we tend to find is sites now have come leaps and bounds in terms of safety culture. Yeah. But we also need to move that culture forward thinking in terms of lean and productivity and efficiency and effectiveness as well. Yeah. Put the same amount of rigor that we have on safety now on improvement, and improvement also covers aspects of safety as well. Yeah, if we think of it holistically, it doesn't matter what the metric is, the routine is the same that sits behind it. Yeah, and drives betterment. So if we take that approach and the approach that we've got on safety in a lot of jobs and apply that to what we want to do on productivity and improvement, then happy days. The answers are out there.
Thanks, Mark. So next question is, how do you go about locking the improvements and preventing rollback?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so locking in the improvement. First up, so we talked about that 5C approach, and that 5C approach, and we've got a form that basically encapsulates, it's like a case study template, it's like an A3 project report, yeah, which gives you all the sizes, the issues, the opportunities, what we actually did about it, basically the initial condition, the improvement, and the impact that it's kind of had. So that's almost a lessons learned. Yeah. Now, what typically tends to happen if we're not careful is, okay, so we've learned it on that job, but then it gets archived there or forgotten. So there's no locking in on future jobs. So we need to establish a process where we're not just capturing these lessons learned and bottling them, but we're also then bringing them to the surface on all future jobs, on all future processes, future waves, almost as a natural part of a gateway, and have a bookended approach. So at the end of each phase, we almost have a lessons learned session where we're pulling in and making sure all these 5Cs or improvement solutions are being captured and documented effectively. And then at the start of each phase or each project, we're bringing these dusting these things off, bringing them to the surface and making sure that we're locking that learning in on all future kind of phases. The other thing to kind of think about there is almost the engine for all of these stuff to keep going and all of these improvements to keep coming up and keep coming through is kind of recognition. And so really recognizing people's abilities to catch a problem, identify a problem, put in a robust solution kind of behind it and drive betterment and drive a performance impact and benefit. Like some of those numbers that I showed early on one of those slides, it's highlighting that success, recognizing that across the project, across the program, across the business, which will then inspire and invigorate not just those people involved on those ones to actually do more of that good stuff, but also others to get on board as well. So recognition is really that engine that's going to help drive more and more of this stuff. But of course, we need to make sure that all that learning is continual and locked in as almost the default situation on all future work as a starting point. And we can do that in our gateway reviews and kind of construction kind of process. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, the next one is, how do we avoid creating an industry out of measuring and reporting performance versus actually undertaking improvement activities?
Yeah, love that one. Yeah, because we definitely don't want to make it a job's worth. Yeah, and and the best way to do this, the best answer on this, there's some cracking solutions out there. Now, I was always a big fan of the old Post-it notes. So going back to kind of collaborative planning, last planner kind of work and kind of pool planning sessions, I was always a big fan of the Post-it notes. Thought, oh, there's nothing simpler than people just up with Post-it notes and planning their work in that way. But of course, when you do all that, it is very simple. But then when you start to put in performance metrics on delivery, managing just basic measures like PPC, the percentage of activities completed, and then maybe the reasons for defect, you are potentially looking at, if you put in Excel sheets on the back of that, then it does start to become a bit of a grind and a bit of a job's worth. What I would say now, the easiest way around it to kind of prevent that, and we don't want people kind of tied to PCs doing all this kind of reporting stuff and making more time out of generating these reports and less time to actually take action on the back of them. There's some nice technology software solutions. So there's I can name a few, but you've got things like Datascope. They've got a really nice kind of collaborative planning platform there where all the reports are kind of automated through to things like BIM 360 Plan. There's a number of kind of options out there, and switching to a more digital collaborative planning system like that, we can measure productivity as well. All the reports are actually automated and app driven in real time. So a supervisor literally will have ultimately fed by a collaborative planning session, which is on a digital sticky note wall, all the way through to a robust link down to a little phone app where a supervisor has got a simple check sheet for the activities done or planned for each day, and they can just literally click off, have they done them or not? And if they didn't, was there an issue? Was there a blockage? On a drop down, what was the blockage and what was it? And how many men did he actually have show up at the end of the day? Dead simple, kind of 2-5 minute job to kind of maintain each day on an app. Gives you real-time performance, clarity, and nice dashboards as well. So takes all that reporting burden away from you, gives you more time to actually plan. The other thing I'd quickly say on that as well, on these digital planning solutions, we found that going from almost, I'd call it the analog, the kind of sticky note, Post-it note kind of walls and Excel spreadsheets, we were typically capturing about 60 activities per week across the trades. And as soon as we switched to a digital solution, the amount of activities that we're able to kind of capture, we could get much more rigor, and it was going up to more like 300 activities throughout the week. We were getting much more, much more rigor behind the activities, but also the PPC was actually going up, and then where we'd got discrete kind of productivity measures as well, that was helping to improve, purely because people could see things a lot more clearly and spent less time kind of bogged down with reporting and all that kind of burden, and literally got more time to stand back, understand the processes, more time out on site, making improvement, and actually delivering those robust solutions that are flagged and fed by that information. If that makes sense.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Mark. That's actually all we've got time for now. So if anyone has any other questions that they'd like answered, you can just email me or Mark. We'll give you our contact details. But in the meantime, thanks very much for attending, and thanks very much, Mark, for that. It was really insightful. And just when this webinar finishes, you'll automatically be taken to the feedback form page. It really does take about 2 minutes. If you could please fill that in, that'd be really great. So otherwise, thanks very much, and thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.